Dead men tell no tales, but their ships speak volumes. Welcome to the Cursed Compass, where we explore the darkest maritime mysteries. On November 14, 1948, the SS Hopestar, a 416-foot British cargo ship, was navigating the freezing waters of the North Atlantic. She was caught directly in the path of a Force 9 winter gale, facing sustained winds over 47 miles per hour and 20-foot waves. At 12 p.m., the captain sent a radio message indicating the ship had suffered weather damage to her deep tank. After that transmission, the radio went entirely dead. There was no mayday call. When the ship failed to report her position, a massive international search grid was mobilized. The United States Coast Guard and a fleet of 7 aircraft scoured thousands of square miles of the freezing ocean. They found nothing. No debris field, no oil slicks, and no lifeboats. 40 men and nearly 10,000 tons of steel had vanished from the surface of the Earth. Modern steel cargo ships rarely evaporate. Even in the most violent weather, a sinking vessel typically leaves physical evidence behind. A disappearance this complete suggests an event so sudden and catastrophic that it defies standard maritime physics. In 1950, the British Board of Trade convened an official inquiry in London to solve this maritime impossibility. Because the Atlantic held on to all the physical evidence, investigators had to conduct an autopsy entirely on paper. They combed through the ship's original blueprints, service logs, and maintenance records, hunting for a killer hidden within the ship's own documentation. The inquiry moved from the North Atlantic back to the shipyard, searching for a vulnerability that had remained dormant through a decade of service. Built at the Wallsend shipyards in 1936, the Hopestar was a state-of-the-art cargo workhorse, specifically designed for heavy-duty industrial shipping. Deep inside her hull, she was powered by 2 Parsons steam turbines. These high-pressure, double-reduction geared engines turned out 2,000 horsepower, giving her significant thrust and reliability in rough waters. In January 1940, while navigating the North Sea, the Hopestar was targeted by a German U-boat. She successfully evaded 3 incoming torpedoes, earning her captain an OBE for his seamanship. For the next 5 years, she ran a continuous global deployment, sailing from Bombay to New York and navigating the African coastline, surviving the deadliest maritime theaters of the Second World War. After years of surviving torpedoes and the worst the North Atlantic could throw at a ship in wartime, her disappearance during a routine peacetime voyage left the shipping industry with a paradox. Following the war, commercial shipping experienced immense pressure to meet rebounding global demand. To stay competitive and increase her range, the vessel underwent a routine overhaul in 1947. The 1950 inquiry flagged a chilling discrepancy from this specific overhaul. A 3rd boiler had been installed deep inside the ship's belly, a major modification with no official record of authorization. This diagram illustrates how the modification compromised the vessel. To make room for the massive new equipment, workers had to cut through the ship's internal bulkheads, the primary vertical walls that give a steel hull its rigidity. This altered the ship's meticulously calculated weight distribution and structural balance. Removing those load-bearing bulkheads created an invisible fault line inside the hull. The vessel remained afloat, but she carried a vulnerability that only a specific set of physical conditions could exploit. On her final voyage in November 1948, the Hopestar was sailing in ballast. Her cargo holds were empty, carrying only water in her deep tanks to provide basic stability. An empty ship rides unnaturally high and stiff. When giant waves simultaneously lift the bow and the stern, gravity pulls down on the middle of the vessel, forcing the rigid steel hull to absorb extreme kinetic shock right at its center point. That center point was exactly where the internal bulkheads had been stripped out. The compromised steel could not withstand the leverage of the ocean, and the 416-foot ship broke cleanly in half. When a heavy cargo ship splits, it loses buoyancy instantly. The freezing Atlantic swallowed the Hopestar so rapidly that the 40 crewmen had no time to broadcast a distress call. The lethal combination of unauthorized engineering and extreme physics turned a standard winter gale into a calculated structural failure. The 1950 Board of Trade officially concluded that the structural modifications were the probable cause of the loss. This revelation triggered fierce questioning in Parliament regarding the severe lack of technical oversight in commercial shipyards. While the North Atlantic claimed the crew, the disaster began long before the weather turned. It stands as a strict lesson in maritime physics. If human error compromises the integrity of a vessel, the sea will inevitably find the point of weakness.